If you're a betting person, then you can make a fairly easy amount of money by assuming that a car that's Japanese in a Gran Turismo update will be pretty damn good. And there's a reason for that. They're good cars in real life, but they definitely favour them in the game, that's for sure. There are very few Japanese cars that I can think of from the entire series even, which are even remotely close to challenging. In fact, the only one which I could possibly think of is maybe the Toyota 7, because it's a pretty leery car in terms of power and weight. But even then, that's way more forgiving than it should be. In comparison to especially its real-life legacy, this one is pretty much the pinnacle of being easy to drive and iconic at the same time, because it is of course the 98 shape 22B era Subaru Impreza rally car. Legendary liveries, legendary racing exploits up there with the Evo. You could probably say this is maybe top 10 most iconic rally cars of all time. I think there's a fairly strong argument to be made there. And as far as 1.49 goes, this was my first foray into driving any of the cars. I drove it in the time trial event at Eiger. I immediately liked it. I love the way this car handles, I love the weight shifting. I've taken it off-road as well, which you'll see here in the video, and I like it even more. A lot of people are really disliking the physics of the game, and I'm clearly the outlier here, because even Polyphony have said that, yeah, we got to change some stuff because the physics aren't exactly what we were intending. I don't quite understand how that happened. You'd think they'd have done more testing than that, but apparently not. I like it. You know, I don't get what everyone's hating. I love the new weight of the cars on rally tracks in particular. They don't bounce to the moon quite as much. There's more weight, more meatiness to the steering. Yeah, I mean, I can only say from my own experience, but I like it quite a bit. In the case of this car off-road, well, even up against the other Group B machines, which of course is where this is, it's a jumbled mess of a class, but still, that's where it is, and it speaks again to how little thought they give rally, apparently, in this game. Even with under 300 horsepower, this thing can wipe the floor with the AI handily. And it's a prime example, in fact, of a vehicle which proves the point that I make so often, which is there's no point in having a car that has all the power in the world if you can't use all of it. You'll have far more fun in real life, and you'll have far more victories in a game if you have a car that has less power, but you're using all of it effectively. So for example, in real life, something like a Panda 100 HP or a smaller motorcycle, you can rag the nuts off it, or in the case of my own Syrian Rally, it's only a 110 horsepower car, but you can absolutely rag that thing and have so much fun. Whereas if you're driving a Veyron, well, 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, you can never even approach using the full scope of its power on any kind of public road, and even in a game, you have to rein in something like that. In the world of rally, even more so. There's a reason why stuff like the Mini is such a naturally good rally car. This Subaru to me highlights that point as well, because even though it's way faster than a classic Mini or, you know, a Syrian or whatever else, it's still not that powerful. Especially in Group B, sub 300 horsepower. I mean, you can buy hot hatches with more power than that in real life. 1230 kilos is also good, but it's not crazy lightweight really. Plenty of Pikes Peak cars are far beyond this thing. The price tag is good for what it is. It's 650 grand, of course the only car in 1.49 to be in the legendary dealer. It certainly deserves to be there, and the price could change, but I don't necessarily see it changing too much. I do like the fact that even though overall rally is definitely at a deficit in terms of where it should be in Gran Turismo, it ironically always has been pretty much, and Gran Turismo 5 might be the most effort I've seen them put into rally with actual stages and stuff, but that's by the by. I do like that when they have added proper rally cars in these updates, they have at least been both super iconic and super useful. So the Escudo, possibly the single most iconic car of the whole series, certainly useful if you use it under the right circumstances. Definitely not as OP as it used to be, but still. The Celica, massively useful, especially for cash cow events. Under 700 points with intermediate tyres, nearly 800 horsepower. The thing is a monster. Likewise with this one. Even under 300 horsepower, the amount of damage this thing can do on a track in terms of lap times, victories, on-road, off-road, even to the point where they know you're going to be using this thing on both on and off-road events, because you can take the mud flaps on or off, you can change the aero for on or off-road rallies. Clearly they love this car. They've always shown Evos, Imprezas, all the other JDM icons so much respect and so much love in Gran Turismo. Seeing it in that full HD glory, it just accentuates that even more. And even in terms of point level, at least standard, it's really not crazy. 572 points is fairly modest, which means that in an event which allows you to use it, you're going to mop up easy against the AI. In all but the straightest of tracks with the highest of top-end requirements, very few cars are going to run away from an Impreza. It's just such a legendary cornering machine, again on and off-road. And aside from that, this, as I've said before, is one of those reviews which could end up being a bit repetitive and a bit boring, because when a car is just this flat out good, there's not much else to say. It just really is that good of a car. Maybe some people don't like it quite as much, and again, this comes from someone who, like with the M3, which we'll get to my thoughts on that in a future video coming up, I'm not a super fan of the car. I've never loved the Impreza in any form, and the closest I've come to loving one is the 22B, because of course, who doesn't? You know, even if you don't love it, it's so iconic, you can't deny how badass it is. This being the actual rally version that car exists for the purpose of, to homologate this thing, well of course it's even more legendary, even more collectible. The fact that it's not just a collector's piece, but that you can actually use it, well of course that makes it all the better. These are the kind of machines which I believe are technically, even if they're not the most clamoured for by the community, you could make a good argument, or at least I would, that these are the kind of cars that are actually the best in updates, because it combines two things. It's super iconic, super collectible, and super justified to be in the game, both from a historic Gran Turismo point of view and also just in general to be a car that should be featured, but crucially, it's not just featured for the sake of it. It's a car which is a collector's piece, but you can absolutely use this thing as often as you want and get so much use out of it. Those are the best cars overall, and that's why I always go back to stuff like the Aston Martin Valkyrie in terms of being among the best we've had in the game so far, because yes, it's crazy, yes, it's super cool to have it, but it's such an overwhelmingly, undeniably useful car, and the Subaru is like that. So yeah, regardless of fandom, it's just an objectively excellent car. I'd love to hear your thoughts, especially those to the contrary. If anyone perhaps doesn't like the car, I'd be really curious to hear why, and of course stick around for the rest of my reviews in 1.49, and I'll see you then. But for now, thanks for watching.